Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Gillian Tett, U.S. Managing Editor of Financial Times and Chair of the Knight-Bagehot Board.
Well, good evening, everybody. Hey, it worked. Amazing. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 43rd anniversary dinner celebration of the Knight-Bagehot Fellowship in Economics and Business Journalism. That's quite a mouthful, so from now on, we'll just call it the Bagehots. And for those of you who are tweeting, hashtag Bagehots is the tweet to use, and you can also get on Wi-Fi with the password Bagehots, lowercase. Now, I'm absolutely delighted to be here tonight and delighted to see so many of you, because as I think everybody in the room knows, we are at a critical moment for journalism. In the last 2 years, we've seen that journalism is a crucial pillar of democracy, not just in the US, but around the world. And we've also seen that journalism is under attack. Under physical attack, as we've just seen so tragically in Turkey, but also under political and social attack. So what we're going to be doing tonight is essentially celebrating journalism, upholding journalism, and coming together to find ways to fight back by championing good, decent, credible, highly respected business journalism. We'll be doing that in a few minutes with a conversation between Kara Swisher, the executive editor of Recode, and A.G. Sulzberger, publisher of the New York Times. And I'd like to say a very big personal thanks to both of them for taking part tonight, and I'm sure we're all very much looking forward to what they have to say at this critical moment. We'll also be hearing a bit about the importance of business journalism and the role it can play when we give the Wells Prize to Jeff Horowitz, the AP journalist who has done a series of masterful scoops on the links between Trump, Manafort, Russia, and Ukraine over the last year. He, in many ways, epitomizes why we need good, well-informed, well-educated, credible business journalism. But we'll also be hearing a lot about how we can support journalism through the Bagehot Fellowship itself, and the very important work it's doing in educating journalists to really cover markets and business and economics with confidence and conviction and knowledge. And none of that would be possible without the support of a lot of people in the room tonight. So I'd like to say a few quick thank yous. Thank you to Citi and JP Morgan Chase for sponsoring our cocktail and dinner receptions, respectively. We're very grateful to you. Thank you to our dinner chairs, and you'll be hearing from them shortly. Gary Liu, CEO of South China Morning Post, Jessica Lessin, CEO of The Information, and Ed Skyler, Executive Vice President of Citi. Once again, we're very grateful to them. And we'd also like to say thank yous to our major sponsors, Alibaba Group, Brunswick Group, Goldman Sachs, and the New York Times. Yes, and let's have a round of applause. And the good news, the very encouraging news before we even start hearing about what the program's up to, is that over the past year, we've raised over $500,000 to fully fund the fellows for another year at Columbia University and to strengthen and advance journalism. I'd like to say that is one of our strongest shows of financial support that we've had in recent years, and that is truly fantastic in terms of making sure we can fund those fellows. It's important to point out that all the proceeds from tonight go directly to support the fellowships. If you're here tonight, you're helping to fund a journalist who's going to be doing fantastic business and financial and economic journalism in the future. So thank you. And I should also say that although there's no silver bullet to deal with the crisis in journalism today or other challenges, what we do have tonight is an innovation, which are silver bowls. I think you should be able to see them all at your table, which have pledge cards inside them. And those of you who are able to pledge, we're very grateful. And you can look out for our volunteers who will be circulating at the dinner break, and they'll be taking those pledge cards. Lastly, as I said before, if you're going to tweet, please use the hashtag Badgets, and you can get online by using the password Badgets lowercase. So that's all from me at the moment, apart from to say once again, thank you for coming along tonight. Enjoy the dinner. And now I'm going to be welcoming up to the stage the Dean of Columbia Journalism School, Steve Cole. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. On behalf of everybody at Columbia, I'd like to add my gratitude and welcome for all that you do. Gillian has been a terrific leader on the Knight-Bagehot Board of Advisors, and there are many board members here tonight who have given lots of time and effort over this year to make this such a success. And I'd like to thank Paul, also our consultant, who has worked so tirelessly to bring us together and get us here tonight. So thank you. In a year of transition, this has been a real achievement and wonderful to see such a full turnout. Many of you were here last year when we paid tribute to the Knight-Bagehot program's longtime executive director, Terry Thompson, who retired after more than 25 years in a leadership role. She was such a beloved and successful leader of the program. It was very hard to see her go. But even a wonderful leader can leave an opportunity for the next leader to think fresh and look ahead with a new vision. And since we were together last year, we've been busy identifying and bringing aboard that leader. With Gillian's support and the Board of Advisors, we decided to convert the position of leader of the Knight-Bagehot program into a faculty position on the Columbia Journalism School faculty, so the program would be fully enfranchised in our faculty, which is really the governing body at our school. And a committee of faculty members and members of the Knight-Bagehot Board of Advisors conducted an extensive search through last winter, identified quite a wonderful and diverse field of candidates, and finally led us to the appointment of a man known, I think, as well to many of you, Raju Narasetti, the new executive director of the Knight-Bagehot program. We're thrilled that he agreed to join us, and we're already stimulated by his leadership. I just want to give those of you who don't know him just a few notes about his career. Raju's been a journalist at the Wall Street Journal, an executive with international and digital experience growing year by year. As the digital revolution arrived, he rose into leadership positions, became a thought leader beyond the institutions that he led, served as managing editor at the Washington Post and accelerated its digital transformation, and of course, ultimately became chief executive at Gizmodo, overseeing a portfolio of innovative and diverse digital-first journalism properties. One of the things that's been exciting about his arrival is his emphasis on journalism and his understanding that the Knight-Bagehot program is, although it is devoted to expertise in business and finance subject matter, fundamentally about journalism in all of its facets, and has really reconnected the program deeply to the school. So we're excited to have him, and I'd like now to formally welcome Raju Narasetti to his first Knight-Bagehot dinner. Raju.
Thank you, Steve, for the very generous introduction. It goes to show that not all forms of inflation are bad for you. We don't often think of business journalism when we talk about journalism and journalists being in trouble, but it's perhaps worth remembering that several of the journalists that killed this past year in many countries, an unfortunate statistic that stays high each year, were really silenced because they were exposing financial corruption, tax fraud, money laundering, or economic crimes, be it in Malta, Mexico, or those writing about the sand mafia in India. So really thank you to the many, many business journalists in this room, their editors and their business side managers, as well as those of you here today from many other non-journalism industries and fields for what you really do every day to deliver and stand behind really honest and quality journalism. We've had Gillian and Steve talk about those who support us, but I want to mention a special thanks in particular to 3 supporters who are here. Back in 1975, when Columbia University decided that we need a program to improve business journalism, several companies really stepped forward and said we will support it. 3 of the original supporters who stood with the Bagehot's for all 43 years are here today, and I want to thank them. Thank you, Citi, AT&T, and Prudential, for really being with us for the last 43 years. We wouldn't be where we are today without your support, so really appreciate that. You may have heard AT&T just today gave $250,000 to the Committee to Protect Journalists without any strings or unsolicited, just because of what's happening this week in journalism. Thank you. So I stepped into this role with a very strong appreciation for tradition and longevity. I mean, this is the 44th year of the Knight-Bagehot Fellowships. And my terrific predecessor, Terry Thompson, who is here today at Table 1, has been the director of the program for more than half its existence and has built a wonderful tradition, including this dinner. I'm also acutely aware that we can't just rest on longevity and also need to keep evolving and staying relevant. So with your continued support and feedback, we really intend to make sure that the Knight-Bagehot Fellowship remains both contemporary, rigorous, and relevant to journalism and the business of journalism writ large. We are looking at bringing more data journalism, more understanding of how technology is impacting all of business, not just Silicon Valley, and also make it more global in terms of who the fellows spend their time with outside of their formal classes at Columbia. Throughout this evening, you're going to see examples why business journalism has really been at the forefront of great journalism this past year, whether it's covering the Trump campaign and the Trump administration, or Facebook's kind of video claims, Elon Musk's SEC battles, or the Republican tax cuts, or US-China trade wars. These have all been amazing business stories of this year. And all of our journalism speakers tonight, A.G. Sulzberger, Jessica Lessin, Gary Liu, and of course, Kara Swisher, really represent news organizations that are in many ways at the epicenter of great business journalism, whether it's Silicon Valley or DC or New York or Hong Kong. And these stories, particularly looming trade wars and battles over algorithms and artificial intelligence, are very much going to be front and center, even if we all think that the only stories we read about are about President Trump. The Bagehot program really began to deepen and strengthen the skills of business journalists in America, but the fellows have to be much more than getting better in their jobs or in their professions or just doing good journalism. The Bagehot year also needs to remind the fellows that they need to reconnect with why we all got into journalism in the first place, that it's not a job or a profession, but it's also a calling, and that we owe our readers and our audiences not just good work, but meaningful work. So with your support, we want to affirm that that focus will be a much larger part of the Knight-Bagehot year at Columbia going forward. And I once again thank you all for showing up today to support us. With that, let me invite Gary Liu of the South China Morning Post to come up and talk a little bit. Gary?
Good evening, everyone. Well, let me add another warm welcome to everyone who have come to join us on the 43rd anniversary celebration of the Knight-Bagehot Fellowship Program. Now, the South China Morning Post is proud to be a sponsor this evening to honor a program that continually champions independent, critical, and comprehensive journalism. We are also here to actually thank everyone in the room, all of you who are the generous donors that make this vital work possible. 2018 has thus far been a very complicated year for the global news industry. there are increasing challenges, although none of them new. Declining revenues, opaque distribution models, loss of audience trust and brand recognition. Add to that a crescendo of attacks on independent press, sometimes by rhetoric, and unfortunately sometimes by reprehensible action. And it all adds up to distress. But there are also encouraging signs of progress. Digital subscription is maturing. Creative studios are attracting more budget and spend. Technology platforms are responding to growing calls for accountability by engaging more directly with publishers. And there is alignment for a brighter future as the resilience of our peers is evident across the globe. We are all here tonight because we recognize that this progress is critical. The need for a vibrant and trusted news industry, although dismissed by some, has never been more important. A digital world that has democratized knowledge has also, somewhat unintentionally, blurred the lines of authority and accountability, of truth and falsehood. Now, against such a backdrop, there is an acute and amplified need to elevate thought above the din. The Bagehot's, its fellows, faculty, and alumni are essential to this effort. The South China Morning Post has been a keen observer of Asia's growth and change over the last 115 years. And our commitment to the highest expectations of journalism are driven by the belief that an informed global society is imperative for peace and prosperity. Now, over the last century, we have seen that wherever conflict exists, whether it is ideological, about religion, wealth, or power, that the path to cooperation is most often found via communication and commerce. Our own home city of Hong Kong is itself a grand example. It is literally a rock on which cultures have and continue to clash. Its formation a product of war. And by virtue of one of the history's great trading ports and a deep-seated resolve to connect, Hong Kong became and remains a truly global city. And the SCMP, we aspire to that same resolve, and we honor it with our logo, which is a maritime flag that trading ships use, and that maritime flag means I wish to communicate with you. Communication and commerce. What better program than the Bagehot's to remind us of its importance? Amidst growing polarity here and abroad, including a trade war between the world's two largest economies, a conflict, by the way, of ideology and religion and wealth and power, we can but rely on an informed society that finds a path forward in spite of discord. So, it is my honest hope that in the spirit of this fellowship, we leave here tonight moving forward toward the same goals: to value truth, to desire communication, and to elevate thought across the world. Thank you, and congratulations once again to the Bagehot's.
Thank you, Gary. It's that time of the evening when we honor a Knight-Bagehot alum with the Christopher J. Wells Prize. The prize is named after Chris Wells, a former director of the Bagehot program and an intrepid and dogged business reporter in the 80s and 90s. Columbia Journalism School and the Knight-Bagehot Advisory Board are really delighted to award the Chris Wells Prize to our 2013-14 Bagehot Fellow, Jeff Horowitz, for exposing the hidden financial relationships between Paul Manafort, President Trump's campaign manager, and his covert foreign clients. The Associated Press that Jeff and stories that Jeff and his AP colleagues did, and several of his editors in the room today, sparked really widespread coverage. And as we know, Mr. Manafort, who pled guilty to multiple counts, is now in jail and awaiting additional sentencing. So please join me in congratulating Jeff Horowitz.
I want to take that thing with me up here right now, but a little distracting. it is an honor to receive a prize for a legendary business journalist, though I will say I'm was a bit surprised to learn I'd won it, because my career has been pretty thoroughly hijacked by politics in the last 3 years. I still try to approach the work I do with the mindset of a business journalist, and in the case of Paul Manafort, that meant mapping out key employee and vendor and client relationships in the same way a lot of people in this room would go ahead and map out a business that had, shall we say, a revenue model that did not make any sense from the outside. My AP, let's see, including the time we spent running down Manafort's personal spending in this business reporting, sort of in this analogy might seem like a bit of a stretch, but I assure you that that was A, a big use of our time. We couldn't believe what he was spending. And B, that it isn't actually that out of keeping with what corporate America tends to do with executive compensation for a man to want a $15,000 ostrich skin jacket. I'd like to thank my editor, Ted Breitis, for editing the stories, and also the AP's management for aggressively defending them after Boris Schiller sued us on behalf of Manafort's patron, Oleg Deripaska. Nobody ever saw fit to tell me how much it cost to defend that lawsuit, for which I'm grateful, but it is definitely in the six figures, and thank you so much, AP. I should acknowledge my AP colleagues and I had some extremely lucky breaks, not the least of which is that there was a prosecutor on hand to pick up on the reporting we did and to lead to the eventual indictment and trial of Paul Manafort. That is, was a great moment sort of for a feeling of impact, and I think we all aspire to that. And it's hard to argue that the AP's work or the excellent reporting by the Times and Yahoo News on Manafort would have had the same effect without the hurriedly appointed and special counsel who had a very broad mandate. I'm not giving a Robert Mueller shout out here, but I think the Manafort story is a reminder that the normal way that we tend to judge impact for white-collar investigative reporting tends to be arrests and people getting fired. And right now, that doesn't tend to happen much. The failure of government to follow up on solid, replicable reporting isn't unique to Washington, and it's not new in any particular administration, but the lack of accountability seems very notable now, and I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of publications have shifted toward sort of more of a breaking news model, a breaking news investigative model, in which there's quicker turnaround and things are pegged to the news. I'm definitely not arguing with that. Building that capacity is worthwhile, but here's hoping that the publications that I love and respect and that employ a lot of Knight-Bagehets continue to fund sort of the turning over rocks and rooting around in the bushes work that I love. So thank you to the Knight-Bagehot program for training me, and thank you for the AP for investing in the work.
Thanks, Jeff and Gary. Double congratulations to Jeff, who's getting married in about 3 weeks. Now I would like to invite Jessica Lessin, CEO and founder of The Information, up here. Jessica.
Good evening, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be in a room with people who love business journalism as much as I do. It's a big room. I come from San Francisco. I'm overwhelmed by the number of people here, many of you who very directly contributed to my love of business journalism, so thank you. When I started The Information 5 years ago and I said I was going to leave the Wall Street Journal to start a startup, online-only business publication. I think many people thought I was quite insane. And I think I just want to send the message tonight that business journalism is alive and well, particularly in the digital age where so many publications are really proving that you can do great work and build a sustainable business. At the Information, we started with me, and now we have over 26 full-time journalists in San Francisco, New York, Hong Kong, LA, and Seattle. And I'm really proud of our team, many of whom are here tonight over on this side of the table, for the incredible work that they've been doing. And I think one thing to consider as we look out today about the possibilities in journalism is that we don't forget a lot of the fundamentals that struck me 5 years ago and still do today, which is that the demand for in-depth, hard-hitting business journalism has really never been greater. It's just clear companies have more tools at their disposal to mislead, and there's more information out there to create noise. But I think there's a lot of questions about whether people want business journalism, even in a news cycle where politics dominates so much. And they absolutely want it. And if you get, this is a Bagehot dinner, so we can talk about economics and wonky financial stuff. But if you think about the demand increasing, the cost of distributing incredible journalism has never been lower. So I think that we have to think as an industry about that incredible delta and that incredible potential and work hard to build great businesses. And I mentioned the great work of our team, just in 5 short years, I think our journalists have managed to have tremendous impact, whether it's documenting an Uber employee trip to a South Korean escort bar that led to some, along with other great journalism, eventually the ouster of the CEO, to uncovering claims of sexual misconduct at a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, Binary Capital, which no longer exists, to being the first to report that Google had covered up a sexual harassment allegation against its top executive, Andy Rubin, and had let that slide. So, this great work is being done and is very, very important, and thank you in this room for supporting it. Especially the Bagehot program is a wonderful program. We've hired an alum already in our short history, and we'd love to hire many more. We doubled our newsroom in the past year and plan to keep up the same pace for many years to come. So I'm particularly fond of the program and what it stands for because I remember being an intern in the Econ Bureau at the Wall Street Journal and relying very heavily on my economics textbook to write very basic indicator stories and had very little idea of what I was doing at the time. So I think it's absolutely wonderful that there are programs that can give our journalists all the tools they need to really go up against all the forces they need to go up against. So thank you again for all being here tonight, and it's really a delight to be around so many friends and folks who feel as passionately about our industry as I do. Thank you.
You want to hang on here? So before Jessica and I talk about the Word Prize, can we have the house lights up a bit, please? The lights? No? Anybody listening up there? Thank you. Can I have the current Bagehots to stand up? Stay standing. So come May, this cohort of 10 will join another 392 alums of the Bagehot program over the last 43 years. Several of the Bagehots are here. If I may, can I have all of the Bagehots stand up as well? Terry, you have to too, as well. Thank you. As you can see from the badges who stood up, we have done our bit to making sure that business journalism is very diverse. This particular cohort is 50-50 women and men, thanks, Terry. But at the same time, we can do a lot more, especially on gender diversity in business journalism. A 2017 study by the Women's Media Center showed that only 2 out of 5 stories, business stories, are done by women in this country, which is good, but definitely not great. So Columbia Journalism School and the Knight-Bagehot program would really like to help change that. I'm really delighted to announce that we are unveiling a new global journalism prize to recognize work by women journalists that foster a greater understanding of global business, something that Jessica and her team do very well. This inaugural prize, which is endowed by the Women's Economic Roundtable, will have a $2,000 honorarium. But this year, to mark the 40th anniversary of the Women's Economic Roundtable, the Muriel Siebert Foundation is going to double it for the first prize that we give out in 2019. In fact, Dr. Amy Augustus, who founded the Women's Economic Roundtable 40 years ago and is a big supporter of the Bagehot program, is here today. Thank you, Amy, for your support for this program, and thank you for endowing this prize. Jessica, you want to talk briefly about the jurors that we have? I think I have the names here. That's in everybody's program, but here, let me. There we go.
It's really quite an impressive group of jurors for this prize, and Raju, congratulations for, and thank you for focusing on diversity from the start when you joined. Gillian Tett, U.S. Managing Editor of the FT, Rebecca Blumenstein, Deputy Managing Editor of the New York Times, Stephanie Mehta, Editor-in-Chief of Fast Company, Barka Dutt, TV journalist and anchor and a columnist for The Washington Post, Michelle Holmes, Head of Partnerships of the Alabama Media Group of Advanced Publications, Sandy Sugawara, Deputy Director of Voice of America, Kevin Delaney, Editor-in-Chief and Co-President of Quartz, Yimki Yoshino, Deputy Managing Editor of the LA Times, and Raju Narasetti, Director of Knight-Bagehot. So very much look forward to seeing the work that gets honored, and I encourage every female journalist in this audience and people who know them to really raise their hand for this great prize.
Thank you very much. Gillian?
Well, thank you, Jessica, for your rousing words and explaining the importance of business journalism and why demand is so strong. Congratulations to Jeff on your prize and for showing why it really pays to invest in good business journalism education. When I started my career many years ago, I used to think that the way to make an impact as a journalist was to go to the battlefield. I now realize that actually delving into balance sheets, being really geeky with statistics, taking businesses on in terms of their accounts can also be an incredible way to really have an impact today as a journalist. It's good to be a geek. But now the good news is that we have 30 minutes to drink, eat, drink, talk. So we're going to take a break. Please go ahead and chat away, and then we'll resume after half an hour. Thank you.